Fellow Falcoholics, what is up? Welcome to another episode of the Dirty Birds and Brews podcast presented by FanDuel. I'm your host, Kevin. I'm Falcoholic Kevin, joined once again. It's been too long to get George Carmi back on here. George, is still G Carmi 21, right? Yeah, and tell the people about where you're at now and your new show before we get started here.
Kevin, it's good to see you again, man. We definitely collaborated a couple of years ago. We kept in touch over the years too. It's been fantastic, good collaboration here. I'm George Carmi. I'm a Commanders. I cover the Commanders for full press coverage. I also do a show called the Big Doug and Carmi Show on YouTube. Definitely give us a check. A follow. We'll definitely break the game down on Wednesdays. Every Wednesday we do a film review. So even as a Falcon fan, you can come back and watch the game, and kind of see what went well, what went wrong through the week. So it's cool. So definitely check us out.
Absolutely, guys. It's a lot of fun. Love checking out the channel, especially after the game. Unfortunately, the game last week for the Falcons is one that we all want to move on from immediately. So it's good to turn the page here, get into week 4. I'm ready to be done talking about that disaster. Maybe we'll talk about it a little bit, of course, in the context. But guys, welcome in. Thanks for joining us. Like, subscribe, leave us that 5-star review in your podcast platform of choice, all that good stuff. We're going to be getting into the injury report, which is pretty unfortunately long for the Commanders this week. Falcons a little bit lighter, which is nice to see, but we're going to dive into the state of these two teams and the matchups that could decide what could be an important NFC matchup here. I mean, these are two teams, Commanders better positioned at the moment, obviously in the wild card race, and certainly not out of it in the division race either. So this could be an important game for Atlanta to get a wild card tiebreaker perhaps, or really just a win is all the Falcons are looking for this week. But we're going to get to all that. Before we dive in with George, I want to bring you guys a word from this week's sponsor. Once again, ZipRecruiter, folks. We all know it's kind of a nightmare out there if you're hiring. It's also a nightmare if you're applying. ZipRecruiter is good for both of you guys. It's time consuming. You have to wade through so many resumes. It's tough to get your resume in front of the right people. But don't worry, folks, because the future of hiring looks a lot brighter. ZipRecruiter's got the latest tools and features to help you speed up finding the right people for your roles so you can save valuable time. Now you can try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/audio. With ZipRecruiter's new advances, you can easily find and connect with qualified candidates in minutes. And if you see a candidate you're really interested in, you can unlock their contact info instantly. No waiting around. Over 320,000 new resumes are added to ZipRecruiter every single month, which means you can reach more potential hires and fill those roles sooner. So guys, use ZipRecruiter, save time hiring. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. And if you go to ZipRecruiter.com/audio right now, you can try it for free. Again, that's ZipRecruiter.com/audio. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. All right, George, let's start with this injury report. I'll cover the Falcons side real quick because there's not a whole lot that's surprising here. Kyle Pitts upgraded to full participant today with a toe injury. That's not really something the team has expressed any concern about. Same thing with DeMarco Hellams, who's practicing fully with a hamstring injury, and Casey Washington. Good news there. Finally returning after a 2-week absence with a concussion. He has now logged his full first practice. That's nice to see. Kick returner Jamal Agnew limited again with the groin, but that's an upgrade for him compared to last week. And then James Pierce Jr. still nursing his own groin injury as a limited participant, but he did practice in a limited fashion all week and then play. So that would be my assumption once again. And then the DNPs for the Falcons, special teams ace Kadero Hodge not participating with a groin. AJ Terrell still looks like he'll be out this week with his hamstring injury. And then Nathan Carter, the third string running back, out with a hamstring. And then Josh Woods did not practice, but that is not injury related. It's a personal matter. So not a whole lot here that's surprising for the Falcons. Obviously, we'd like to see Casey Washington back, particularly if Hodge is going to be out. Washington would kind of move into that primary gunner role and like a reserve receiver. We've been really hurting at returner without Jamal Agnew. So if he could be back, that would be nice. And then just hoping that James Pierce Jr. can shake this groin injury that's been bothering him for a while here. But obviously the big loss for the Falcons is AJ Terrell, who is one of the best corners in the league, was playing really well this year. Thankfully, D. Alford, who stepped in for him, actually played Ted McMillan really well last week, which was a really pleasant surprise. Shout out to Alford for stepping up outside, but that's a big loss for Atlanta. I know, unfortunately, the Commanders' injury report is a lot longer, so why don't you walk us through what's going on over there in Washington?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the complete opposite of that, right? So last year we were blessed with good health, and this year it's the complete opposite. And Washington does have a pretty extensive list. I'll go through them one by one. So for those that are not familiar, John Bates is actually a great blocking tight end. He is our, we play a lot of 12 personnel, and he's constantly on the field, and he is a great like spearhead for our run game. And he's fantastic. He actually pulled his calf and groin the week of the Packers game. He actually sat out against the Raiders. So that's a big loss for us. He is a great blocker. To supplement that, Washington played more of an oversized offensive line and added Trent Scott, which is a tackle, and they played him 19 snaps in the run game. And we actually had a pretty extensive run game last week. We'll talk about that in our game breakdown. So John Bates I don't think he's going to play. He hasn't practiced all week. That's a big loss for us. Noah Brown is our true boundary wide receiver. So Washington, we have Terry McLaurin, Deebo Samuel, obviously, and Noah Brown is our other boundary wide receiver, opposite of Terry McLaurin. He sat out last week, and I don't think he's going to play this week either. That's actually a big loss because he does have a good chemistry with Jaden Daniels. In addition, he actually led the league in defensive pass interferences last year. So down the field, he does draw the foul, but he has been out the past week. So that's definitely a loss because, Washington is kind of thin at wide receiver. Like you'll see this week, Deebo Samuel is a fantastic player, and he actually has been rejuvenated and had a renaissance in DC. He scored, I think, 3 touchdowns so far, or at least 2. But he's more of a gadget player. He's more of a kick returner. He's more of a runner out of the backfield, more of a screen player. And he's fitting Cliff Kingsbury's offense very well. But does he run down the field? Does he have that 9 route, that slant, that post route? Not so much. He's more of a gadget player. So we're looking for that other wide receiver. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Percy Butler, our safety spots actually hit pretty hard. Will Harris, which was our starting strong safety, he has a fractured fibula, so he's going to be on injured reserve. Percy Butler, who is a reserve safety, he has a hip injury, did not practice, and I don't think he didn't dress today during practice, so I'm not sure if he's actually going to play this week either. Krosky Merritt, he's kind of our rookie phenom. He's had a really good training camp. He's been playing very well. I think he is going to play. I just think he's banged up. They're giving him some rest. He's a very physical runner, and I think he's just getting some time off. But like I heard he practiced today, or he was in pad stretching, but he didn't actually practice today. But I think he's going to be fine altogether. The big one is Terry McLaurin, guys. I don't think we're going to see him this week. And I think that's going to be, I guess it is kind of symmetrical. AJ Terrell's going to be out. Terry McLaurin's going to be out. Maybe it's a wash between the two. But Terry McLaurin had a great play where there was a 56-yard bomb to him last week. He caught the ball. I don't know if you guys saw it on Red Zone or watched the replay, but he dove for a goal line touchdown. And the defender had his legs kind of wrapped up, and he pulled his quad that way. So he has a pulled quad. He hasn't practiced this week. In fact, there's been rumors swirling around. They got a second opinion this week, which isn't a great thing. And when you get a second opinion on something, they're going to be out. I guess the one positive is that he's not on injured reserve. It wasn't an immediate 4-week out, but it sounds like he's going to be out maybe this week or maybe next. So we'll see what happens there. The $1 million question is Jaden Daniels, right? So Jaden Daniels, he practiced today. He did a couple QB drills, a couple bag drills, a couple speed work with his legs. So that's kind of promising. I think the disconnect or what's happening in DC is Jaden Daniels wants to play. I think he is 80%, 90%, but I think the coaches are trying to pull the reins back. That's going to be the number one dilemma there. Like, is Jaden Daniels going to play? We'll see. And the mixture, and kind of it's funny talking to a Falcon fan, is that Marcus Mariota played very well last week, right? So it might be like the Marcus Mariota revenge game coming against Atlanta. So we'll see how that goes. But he actually was very efficient. He had a really great game last week. And I think because he played so well, I think Washington can err on the side of caution with Daniels, kind of give him another week to rest up. Last two I'll hit on is Trey Amos. I hope he plays. I want him to be highlighted with you guys. He's a really good player. He's probably been our best rookie all of training camp. I got Krosky Merritt's the fantasy back, and everyone hears about him. But Trey Amos has been immediately the starter at cornerback too. He's been fantastic. He's been he's a great cover corner, one of our longer corners, and he plays very, very well. He had a calf injury, but he's practicing full today, so that's going to be good. And it's fun to watch. So you guys will enjoy him. And then finally, I mean, it's a long list. It's Colson Yankoff, and he practicing full. He's one of our backup tight ends, and he's a good player as well. But the big takeaway is Terry McLaurin's probably not going to play. Giannino's coin flip, and I think the other big one is Bates and Brown being gone, so that we are kind of playing at a disadvantage this week.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of sort of the supplementary players to this offense, and Noah Brown, John Bates as your top, tight end. When you go to that heavy offensive line package that does boost the run game a little bit more, but it kind of takes a pass catcher out of the option. Even if Bates isn't getting a lot of targets, linebackers still have to kind of stay home on some of those plays, make sure he's not leaking out. But yeah, obviously the one that, I think is the most up in the air is probably, Bill, the legend of Bill. It seems like, I agree with you, it seems like the vibe nationally is that he's trending towards playing, so it's good to hear from Washington side that seems to be the vibe as well. So that'll be one to monitor. As a Terry McLaurin dynasty manager, I am all about Terry McLaurin, so I'm sad if he was going to miss this game, but I would rather he stay healthy for the long haul because we're all going to need him. All the fantasy managers and the Commanders fans, we need Terry McLaurin out there. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, Jaden Daniels is kind of the $1 million question, and whether or not the Commanders really need him to beat this Falcons team that just got blanked by the 0-2 Panthers, which is just not a sentence I'd ever thought I'd have to say in the year 2025. After demolishing the Vikings on the road in primetime, Falcons come home and stay on the road, but lay an egg against the Panthers. Hate to see that, but it seems like the betting markets aren't really overreacting to that game, like Falcons fans are, because the Falcons are just 1.5 point underdogs right now at home, of course, but that's per FanDuel. So it seems like the idea is this game is likely to be close, and this line could shift if Daniels is announced playing. But like you mentioned, the Commanders are down multiple guys, so even if Daniels does play, this is not going to be a full-strength Commanders team on Sunday.
Yeah, so what ended up happening was, I'm sure you saw it nationally, the Commanders laid an egg against the Packers on a short week on that Thursday night football game. I think it kind of resonated throughout the stadium and resonated throughout the headquarters, where Washington was like, whoa, what happened there? We were a 12-5 team, an NFC Championship contending team, and Green Bay just absolutely dominated us. So what ended up happening was during week 3, Washington reimagined their game plan, and Kingsbury's like, you know what, we're going to punch him in the mouth, right? We're not going to necessarily throw the ball around. We have a backup quarterback right now. We're going to be more physical. And what ended up happening was with the run game, they just created some diverse and really unique looks. We actually broke it down in my film breakdown yesterday. And I think the Raiders were just caught off guard because they played up tempo. They had these really, offset lines where they had, three tackles on one side and just a guard on the left-hand side. They had a wishbone formation. They had Deebo Samuel and Wildcat. They just variated the run game so much, and they did it in up-tempo where the Raiders would walk up to the line like, what the hell is that? And boom, they called the play, and the Commanders would have a big rushing attempt. And they walked away with over 200 yards rushing, and because of that, Mariota didn't have to carry the load. And I think that's going to be the formula against Atlanta as well. I think that, Mariota does have that RPO, and he just has that read option capabilities with him. So have that in the back of our mind. But I think they are going to try to run against the Falcons. Now, I'd love to hear about your defensive line, but I think that's going to be the approach there. And what's interesting about Washington is even as someone that follows this every single day and lives and breathes it, I don't even know who's going to lead the team in touches. Like people think about Krosky, Merritt, and Bill, like, oh, he's the guy, but it's not so much, right? If you look at the even distribution last week, it was Chris Rodriguez, 11 carries, I believe. Merritt had 8, something along the lines of that. And then Nick McNichols had a good 6 or 7 as well. So it was a pretty diverse, and that's not even including Mariota. So it was a pretty even distribution, and they all performed pretty well.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And, as someone who had to desperation add Jeremy McNichols because I'm also an Austin Eckler dynasty manager, I'm hoping, that he's sort of, announced himself to the coaching staff is going to get more touches this week because I really need him. But yeah, they do seem to have a 3-headed attack now. And, I would imagine like if Bill is healthy, then he's probably going to get the first crack at it, but they may also diversify it. If he's hurting, they may not want to give him a full load. So we'll see how they distribute it. But yeah, the Falcons run defense in particular, kind of starting off with this rushing game, because that's going to be a point of emphasis, I imagine, for the Falcons as well on offense. Given that the passing game has kind of sputtered, and when they destroyed the Vikings, they just kind of stuck with the run game all game, and it eventually just wore them down, and they kind of opened the floodgates in the second half, piling up over 210 yards on the ground. But looks like so far the Falcons rushing defense has been pretty solid. They're 13th in yards per carry. They allow about 4 per carry, and in total rushing yards allowed, they are 10th, so right around the same number. They're allowing less than 100 rushing yards per game. And I know the Commanders are also a good run defense right now. I think they're just a hair behind Atlanta, 12th in total rushing yards, and I think they are 9th in yards per carry. So these are two pretty evenly matched run defense. I think they're both pretty good, and this might be sort of a ground and pound game. I mean, we'll see, because the Falcons' passing defense has been the bright spot. I mean, they're the number one passing defense in the league without AJ Terrell last week. They still managed to do it. They're only allowing 131 passing yards per game. Net yards per attempt, they're third, 4.6, this was also not on my bingo card. The Falcons getting shut out by the Panthers and the pass defense being one of the best in the league. Jeff Ulbrich has come in and kind of completely reshaped this. I know you mentioned Trey Amos as a rookie in your secondary. The Falcons, 2 rookies starting in the secondary with Billy Bowman, who had just an explosive start to the season, and then Xavier Watts, who's also been fantastic for them, giving them an actual running mate for Jesse Bates. Yeah, imagine what that can do. But and they've also had a pass rush. I mean, I think they started off super hot, and they've cooled to be more like average, but that's far better than this team has been in recent memory. I think they're already over 10 sacks, and they've been generating pressure at above average rate. So, defensively, the Falcons actually have something going here. It's just that the offense completely went in the tank. But that's going to kind of factor into the Commanders' decision to go with Mariota or not, because I think maybe you don't need a ton of scoring, even though the Falcons' defense has been pretty good. If you don't need a ton of scoring, I think Mariota is very serviceable backup quarterback. I think when his confidence is high, which it is right now, he can be a starting caliber player. It's just, I think he got a little overexposed in Atlanta, started to lose confidence and kind of fell apart there. But I think in spurts, like, he can absolutely be a starter for you. So I'm curious what the approach will be from the Commanders. And obviously you have to think about Jaden Daniels' long-term health, because this is a team that's got playoff aspirations at the very least.
Absolutely. And I think Cliff Kingsbury is a great offensive coordinator, right? And I think Marcus Mariota is a good fit for him. So as you know, Cliff Kingsbury, USC coach, he was he developed Kyler Murray, developed Baker Mayfield. He's used to that spread offense, that air raid offense. And I think he knows how to work to Marcus Mariota's strengths. And I think that's what it's ended up working out pretty well. He doesn't ask Marcus Mariota to take over a game or throw the ball downfield or be an intermediate passer. It's more of a, yards after catch, more of a screen type of game, more of a RPO type of game, and developing on the run game. And I think that actually worked well with Washington and their skill players. So Deebo Samuel's, obviously a great yards after catch guy. I think he's like maybe 4th or 6th over the past 4 years and across the entire NFL with the yards after catch. He does a great job with that. And then we also have Jalen Lane, who is a Virginia Tech he's one of the faster wide receivers in the NFL Combine. He actually scored a 90-yard punt return last week, and let me take a step back. Jalen Lane will be a great asset in regard to screens and kind of a creation after the play for the offense. But that's going back to our other point. The special teams actually really, really won the game for Washington last week, which is something to keep an eye on. I wonder if it's going to continue, because Jalen Lane had a 90-yard punt return touchdown. Deebo Samuel had the first kickoff of the game, had a 70-yard kickoff return to open up at the end and get up 3-0 against the Raiders. And, that was pretty eye-opening too. So we'll see. I mean, Washington, the name of the game last week for Washington was the Raiders' offensive line was not very strong. The Commanders generated a lot of pressure. They got 5 total sacks, and they had over 5 explosive plays. So it was the kick return, the punt return, a Terry McLaurin bomb, and then McNichols had a 60-yard run as well. So there was some. So that was interesting. Without Jaden Daniels, who's known for being explosive, they still generated big plays.
Yeah, kind of getting it done, looking for that from other guys. And Mariota can threaten some of the same stuff on the ground. He's definitely a dangerous option quarterback and a guy that can take off and run. So you can basically run the same offense. I think very smart backup quarterback, obviously, for someone like Jaden Daniels. And obviously the team didn't really miss a beat last week without Jaden Daniels. So it'll be curious to see if they lean on the side of caution or aggression here against Atlanta. Caliber of opponent may be factoring in terms of whether they think they need Daniels for this or not. But we'll see. With Atlanta on offense, the Commanders' defense is very solid. I mean, like, right there with Atlanta. They've allowed a lot more yards per game, but in terms of scoring, they're right there with Atlanta. I think Washington's 12th and Atlanta's 13th. I mean, they're basically right there. And like we said, the rush defense for for the Commanders very good. The pass defense has been a little shakier. I think they're like 23rd in yardage, and let's check the net yards per attempt. Yeah, about the same. 22nd in net yards per attempt. It's really nice when it lines up because you don't have to ask a lot of questions about, wait, is this fraudulent or not or whatever. But
no, you noted. I think going into the game, we can hang our hat on a strong run defense, and I'm interested to see against a high quality opponent like Bijan Robinson. I honestly think he's emerging. If he's not the truly best all around back in the league, he's up there, right? I think Saquon Barkley has something to say about that too. Jonathan Taylor's having a great season as well. Bijan is just a great high quality talent. I do think our defensive line, that was a point of emphasis for Washington. We got ran up on, we have Saquon Barkley in our division. So with intention this offseason, they got oversized defensive tackles and defensive linemen like Dietrich Weiss, who actually is in injury reserve right now, Javon Kinlaw, which people criticized early on as a kind of a big ticket free agent item that may have been overpaid. He's actually having a pretty good season. He's generating a lot of pressure from the interior. And I think him and a couple other additions have slowed down the run game. So our run game is pretty strong. If we have a weakness, which is going to be kind of interesting, I want to hear about Michael Penix, is there's a lack of communication with our defensive backs. And that's what's happening, right? Like, I'm sure if you saw the Packers game, if you saw the Raiders game, they've had people just explode, right? Tucker Kraft had like over 100 yards, I think maybe a touchdown or two, but he had an epic performance, like a historical Green Bay performance, which is crazy because that's one of the original teams in the NFL. Tucker Kraft had a great game against Washington, over 100 yards. And then Trey Tucker basically last week had 3 touchdowns, 145 yards. And I would say it's mostly due, like doing the film breakdowns, the scheme played is called correctly, but the communication amongst the players is not that very strong. Mikey Sanderson, which is a great cornerback we got from Michigan, he had an awesome rookie year, but he played on the outside. What ended up happening was he played as a nickel defensive back while at Michigan, and they moved him back there. Right? They got Trey Amos, who put him as the boundary. He's 6'1", long-armed. We went him on the outside. We have Marshawn Lattimore on the other side. We're like, you know what? We want Mikey Sanderson, who's like a heady run defender kind of player, in the nickel position to come up and help out in the run support. And he's doing that, but I think he's struggling with communication with Quan Martin, our safety, and we're letting some big plays develop. So I'm curious, like, that's the name of the game. Like, I think the game is going to be close, but can Washington limit those breakdowns and the big plays from Atlanta?
Yeah, no, and you mentioned you're down to reserve safeties as well, and that's probably contributing there. Will Harris, very experienced veteran safety, not having him back there to help direct traffic, probably a big loss for this team. So that's an underrated one that I don't think maybe a lot of Falcons fans are aware of, with Will Harris being on IR. So, yeah, I mean, I love Mike Sanders still. He was one of my guys coming out of the draft. So, but the slot, I mean, it's tough. There's a lot. There's a lot going on, and you gotta go with the two-way goes, and there's a lot of conflicting responsibilities. I think it's really underrated as like maybe the toughest position on defense. It's a tough one. So I'm confident he'll be able to figure it out. Maybe not this week. Maybe next week he can figure it out. But with the Falcons, it's been kind of an inexplicable struggle for the passing game. It doesn't really resemble like you saw Michael Penix last year. This was bombs away. I mean, this was one of the best games of the year. Like,
I thought he was going to break. I thought he was going to break out, to be honest with you. Actually, I have him on one of my fantasy teams.
Yeah. So the Falcons offense has become very conservative. Against the Vikings, it made a lot of sense. You don't necessarily want to throw Penix out there with a reserve tackle, and try to bomb it against Brian Flores' defense. I totally understand that. But against the Panthers, it's just very short stuff, and teams are just playing cover 2 against Penix, and the Falcons' offense has been kind of unwilling to test it.
We got regressed or like mechanics or what's going on? I mean, I haven't seen that many games, to be honest with you.
I think he was fine in the first 2 weeks of the season, but this, like last week against the Panthers, it just kind of all hell broke loose, and it looked like he just was pressing really hard when they got down, and I think they were having a lot of communication issues. Apparently his helmet wasn't working. I don't know how much of that is whatever and how much that matters or whatnot, but after last week, Zach Robinson, the offensive coordinator, is now going to be on the field. So there's clearly an acknowledgement that the communication is not there. The play calls have been getting in really late, and that's not a good setup for a young quarterback at all. It's tough. I'm hoping back at home, Zach Robinson's on the sideline. Maybe they could communicate a little bit better there. A lot of people are panicking about Penix and like, oh, well, this is a sign. He just can't throw over the middle in the NFL. He could throw over the middle. We've seen him do it. Is he as comfortable there? No, but these coaches need to make him comfortable, and they need to give him some easy reads. And Penix needs to be better at seeing the field and calm down a little bit. You get back to the mechanics that we know he has, and sling it a little bit more. But the big question is, like, can the Falcons rebound from that performance last week? Very ugly. They didn't get past the Panthers 30-yard line once, missed 2 field goals right at the beginning of the game, which I'm pretty sure that just set the whole thing off. You should be 7-6, and instead it's 7-0 and then 10-0 and then 17-0 after a pick six. So those types of games happen and they're awful. But this is the Falcons' chance to show that they're not going to let that one bad game, sort of like, the Commanders with the Packers, like, can you rebound from that, or are you gonna slump down and find yourself out of it early in the season? And this is a critical matchup. You've got a Commanders team that we know is not fully healthy. You're back at home. Kind of a critical spot here for Atlanta to get to 2-2 going into their bye, because after the bye, we got to go to Buffalo. So that's not going to be a good place where you need to find a win.
Is it clear that Penix is going to start this week? Because I know, Laura said he's definitely going to start, right? Okay.
Yeah, there's no internal drama at the moment. I mean, we'll see what happens. But I think we all know, like, if Kirk is back in the starting lineup and Penix isn't, like, hurt, that's probably means everyone's getting fired. So, like, it's not a good situation there. I think Penix has had far more great games than he's had bad ones. This was an awful one, but definitely need, I don't think they're going to bench him going into the bye. They're going to at least give him the opportunity to right the ship after that. But this week could go a long way. Like you said, there should be opportunities against a talented Commanders secondary, but one that's having some communication problems. It'll be back at home. They've been on the road for 2 weeks. Could be a bounce back spot, but Commanders aren't going to make it easy.
Yeah, it's going to be a really interesting game. I did think the NFC is very top heavy. I definitely think Lions, Packers are a very strong team. The NFC South is going to be interesting. The Buccaneers are they're looking pretty good right now. So it's definitely something interesting as well. And we'll see how it shakes out. I do think it's going to be a good game. I think it's going to be, I'm sure we'll talk about predictions later on. I think Washington has they have a pretty solid team. I think Washington might be a favorite going into the game. I think the coaching staff with Witt and with Kingsbury can dial some things up, but I don't come in overly confident because I never do. I think it's going to be a back and forth game. It just depends on how it's going to shake out.
Yeah. I mean, we could get to our predictions now. I think this is a dicey spot. This is a bounce back spot for Atlanta. So I'm gonna have them with a 1-point win here. Just scrape it out with like a nice 24-23 situation where both defenses are playing pretty well. Couple big plays. Penix maybe gets a little mojo back, and they just scrape out a very uncomfortable game for both sides here. And what are you feeling going into week 4?
I think Washington's going to get it. I think it's going to be a good game. I do respect Atlanta. I think Bijan's a fantastic player. I'm actually looking forward to watching him. I actually want to ask you about Drake London as well. Yeah. I think Bijan will have a good game. I think Washington he's going to have like 80 yards, and he's going to have like a couple catches. He might score a touchdown too, but I think ultimately Witt and Dan Quinn are going to confuse Penix, and it's going to make it hard for him. And it's going to be kind of a nip and tuck kind of game. I think it's going to be like 24-17 or something along the lines of that. But I think I'm confident in Washington's offense. I think Kingsbury can make it work, especially with Mariota, regardless of who's out there. I think it's going to hurt not having McLaurin out there, but I think he'll be creative enough to make it work. So I think our defense will do just enough. Our offense will kind of carry the load. I think Washington will get the win, honestly.
Yeah, and I think that's probably what the betting markets would agree with as well here. I think Washington's 1.5-point favorites at this point. So, yeah. If you have if you want to talk about London, it's been disappointing. He hurt his shoulder in week 1 at the end of the game. And he just hasn't looked right. It's been the receivers as a whole have been kind of sloppy. I mean, Darnell Mooney missed week 1, came back, but he missed all of training camp. He got hurt on the first day of training camp and missed the whole thing. So he looks rusty. London has not been dominant. Ray is fine, but again, he's sort of just a fine wide receiver 3. Kyle Pitts is supposed to be more emphasized than he was early, especially against the Bucs. They got to find a way to get back to him. He was open for 2 touchdowns against the Panthers last week. Penix just didn't see him. So we got to get Penix back to what he's best at, which is ripping that football and being willing to take chances. His picks came on. One of them came on a mistake that was his mistake and the receiver's mistake, but the other one was just waited too long to go to the check down, didn't read the coverage properly, tried to throw to the flat again, try to throw the out against cover 3 and got it picked off. And, the Falcons have to diversify how they're running these plays. I mean, it seemed like every play, the outlet is Bijan or the running back out of the backfield going right. And after a while, the Panthers were just sitting on it every time. And it was just, his check down percentage is like second highest in the league. That is not Michael Penix. That can't continue to happen. So, I hope that these guys can get together, figure out a way forward. But the whole offense has been kind of disappointing, except for Bijan. Bijan's wonderful. So
it's so interesting because going into the offseason, the narrative was Michael Penix is one of the best deep balls in the entire draft class, right? That was what he was known for, and I actually really enjoyed watching him at Washington. Bijan Robinson's explosive running back. And from what I understand, what I remember, I don't know if anything's changed drastically, but your offensive line has always been pretty strong, right? You have a strong offensive line, strong run game with your offensive line from what I gather. So I guess from what I'm getting is the run game is going to be your hallmark coming up this week, right? And then maybe your defensive line, you guys have invested a lot. Did you get Dallas Turner, I believe? And who else you had one more?
So it was so they took Jalen Walker at 15 this year,
right.
and then they traded back into the first round to get James Pierce Jr. And
That's
both those guys have played well. Pierce
Okay.
Jr. has been like one of the most productive pass rushing rookies, and Jalen Walker missed a lot of training camp, but he's been playing really well against the run and has a couple sacks as well. So those two guys are big contributors there. The interior I think is a little undersized, but they've been also playing pretty well. Just overall, we've seen the stats. I think the Falcons are vulnerable possibly to getting worn down, against the run over the course of a game. But, they didn't happen against the Panthers. The Panthers tried to pound the rock, and the Falcons kept them to 3.7 yards per carry all game. So we'll have to see how it goes. I mean, I think the secondary is the strength. We'll see if D'Alford can keep his hot streak going this week. Stepping in for A.J. Terrell, obviously he'll have an easier matchup. And then Billy Bowman and Xavier Watts, those guys are two great ball hawks in the secondary. We know what Jesse Bates can do. I think the Falcons, to win this game, they're going to need some help. They're going to need probably some turnover help. So they'll be hunting for the ball out there. And, I think this could easily become like sort of a slugfest type of game where we're just the pass defenses are kind of keeping it in check and we're just running the ball. But Caleb McGarry is out at right tackle. So that's a big loss for the Falcons. They're playing Elijah Wilkinson, who converted back to tackle after being a guard for Atlanta for a couple of years. He's been okay, which is about what we were hoping for because the Falcons swing tackle has also been out all season. And he'll be back at some point. But, so they've been getting by with their third string tackle. And, Drew Dahlman left and he was replaced with Ryan Newsel, who was former UDFA. And he's been solid as well. So they're not as dominant as they were last year. They lost two of their best run blockers, but like you said, this should be a ground and pound primary team, especially because teams are playing too high to keep Penix in check. They should be running the ball. Like if they're going to play too high, you got to run the ball. And we just didn't see a commitment to that against the Panthers that I just found very strange. If they're going to sit in too high shell all game, just run. Why not? The Panthers were allowed 5.2 yards per carry on average, and Falcons didn't really take it to them like they did against the Vikings, who are a much better run defense. So are the Commanders.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I mean, it's just the game plan's been odd. Falcons have been pretty predictable. They've kind of overutilized some plays, and there's obviously all this controversy about should they be running the pistol, should they be under center, so and so. They're not using play action. They use play action at the fourth lowest amount in the NFL, which completely boggles the mind because that was Penix's bread and butter at Washington. He was one of the best play action passers in college. So there definitely seems to be a disconnect with the offense as it's constructed and kind of the personnel. So I hope they can figure it out because the Falcons have the pieces here and they have a defense now. So they just need to get this offense. They got to kick somebody in the ass and get this offense going where it needs to go at this point.
There you go. Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, no, it's going to be a good game. I'm excited for it. Anything to wash the taste of that, lay an egg last week out of our mouths. If we just get a competitive game, that'll go a long way to moving on from week 3. But George, thank you so much, guys. He's George Carmi at gcarmi21. Once again, let them know where they can find your stuff, George.
Kevin, thank you for having me on, man. I really appreciate it, and good luck to the Falcons all year long. But not this week, hopefully.
It's not this game.
It's reciprocal, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Guys, definitely follow me on X at gcarmi21. I also do a show called the Big Doug and Carmi Show on YouTube every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We do some, we do a video around 4:00. We either have Opposition Wednesday, we have film breakdowns. We usually have a media member on Friday from the national media or local media kind of talking about the games, the NFL in general. So definitely give us a follow. I cover all football, not just the Commanders. So love to talk to you guys.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on again. Appreciate you, man, guys. I'm Kevin Knight of Falcoholic. Kevin, please subscribe if you haven't done so already. It really helps us out. Leave us that 5-star review on your podcast platform of choice. If you want to support the show, you can do so at patreon.com/Falcoholic Live, or you can join up with the YouTube channel memberships. Thank you guys so much. Once again, thanks for tuning in to Dirty Birds and Brews podcast presented by FanDuel. We will see you guys on Sunday for hopefully a less painful, at the very least, post-game show. So we'll see you then, guys. Enjoy the rest of your week. We'll see you on Sunday. Have a great day.